this week's Torah portion is the longest Torah portion in the Torah. And I know when I started, I said that finally we're over with the double portions, but today is a whammer. And there's a number of interesting topics in today's Chumash. We're not going to finish. I didn't get a chance with everything I had going on today to finish the Chumash, but we will get through quite a bit of it. And then God willing on Sunday, we will finish with it. So we're going to learn a number of interesting topics today, just to share with you what's on the agenda. We're going to learn about a Nazarite. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the person that lets their hair grow long and not allowed to drink wine. And that comes from today's, very interesting, comes from today's parsha. Also, it's good we have Kohanim with us. We have Yehuda. Yehuda, I can't see you, but I see your name. We're going to learn about the famous priestly blessing of Yivarechecha Hashem v'Yishmerecha. Also comes from today's Chumash. Believe it or not, some very famous stuff come in today's parsha as you stay tuned. And then finally, we're going to learn about the wagons that helped carry the stuff in the Mishkan. So all that stuff is taking place in today's class. We'll get right to it. I want to thank Gregory for dedicating today's class. Thank you, Gregory, for dedicating today's class. Many other classes that we do make it possible, so really appreciate it. All right, my friends, let us go back to, we were in the middle of actually Wednesday's Chumash as we were studying, and then, so join me. I believe we are, I got to find a place here. We're holding the Wednesday's Chumash. We learned about, if you remember yesterday, we learned about the suspected adulterous woman, another very interesting topic, and we been discussing that. So we spoke about the waters, just going through the Chumash here quickly, how it would go into her body magically, and they would make her figure out, and then she would die if she did cheat, and if not, she would get a blessing. And that's where we left off. Chapter number 6 of the 4th book in the Torah. And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, God talks to Moshe and he says, speak to the Jewish people, V'yamarta alehem, and say to them, Isha Isha, be a man or woman, whether a man or woman, ki yafli lindor neder, if they will clearly say, lindor neder, to make a promise, okay? And the promise is, Lindar Neder Nazir, to become a Nazarite. They make this promise that they want, very interesting, to be a Nazarite, to be a Nazir, La Hashem, to God, to Hashem. And they want to be this person who lets their hair grow long, is not going to drink any wine or grapes, and not going to become impure. Let's read a little bit about that in the Rashi on this, understanding this verse. So first of all, Rashi asks an interesting question. Rashi says, doesn't always ask this question, but Rashi says, what's the continuation here? The previous day we learned about the suspected adulteress, and today we're learning about a Nazarite. There's got to be a connection between the two. And Rashi says, I guess if you're living in such an environment and you're seeing that, unfortunately, a story like this happens, which is very unusual, and people are behaving in this immoral way, you know what you should do? You should make a promise not to drink any wine. No more wine, not to drink wine. The reason is because wine brings you to these adultery. Wine brings to adultery. I guess that's part of the going there, and therefore it could be a good thing to promise not to touch. Anyway, I know people that have made big mistakes, not this kind of big mistakes while drinking wine, and they basically make a commitment that they're not going to drink anymore because it brings to horrible stuff. So that's the connection between the Nazarite who will not drink any wine to the story of Saita, of the suspected adulteress beforehand. Okay, so he makes this promise. Verse number 3, Miyayin v'sheichar, he shouldn't drink any wine if he wants to be this Nazarite. He takes on this promise, he cannot drink any wine or vinegar. Doesn't seem like, I'm not sure about this, but it doesn't seem like other kinds of alcohol are an issue. This is specifically a prohibition on wine, grapes, stuff from grapes, and vinegar. Chometz, I'm sorry, yayin, wine, shecher is old wine, from the word shikor, drunk, because you become more intoxicated from old wine. Or chaymetz is vinegar. So new wine, old wine, not allowed. You have to remove yourself from them. You have to abstain from them. Chaymetz, yayin v'chaymetz shecher, or a vinegar that comes from young wine or old wine. La yishte, he should not drink it. Chamishras anavim, or even any kind of soaking of grapes. So like you soak grapes in any kind of liquid, water or other kinds of liquids, that liquid becomes prohibited to this Nazirite. The yishtav anavim lachim, whether it be wet, fresh grapes, vivation, or dried grapes, lo yachal, he's not allowed to eat. And any, so all these kinds of different kinds of mixtures of grapes, old wine, new wine, vinegar from wine, dried grapes, fresh grapes, all these things are prohibited for the person to eat once he takes on this Nazirite period, this interesting Nazirite period. Kol Yemei Nizri, all the days of his abstinence, of this commitment, you know, because I believe, if I remember from the Rambam, it has to be a minimum of 30 days. But a guy can do it for 2 months. He can do it for a year if he wants to. You know, whatever his period that he takes on himself is, Sheyasim Migefen Ayayin, anything that's made from the vine of grapes, or the wine, Mechatzanim Vadzug, from even the seeds inside the grape, and Zug, even the shell, the grape shell, Lo Ye'achel, even those things are prohibited. He can't touch it, he can't go near it. Kol Yemei Nizrai, now that's number one. Next thing he does, he has to let his hair grow long. You know, there's a very famous person who was the very famous in the Torah. Who knows the name of the very famous Nazirite in the Torah? Anybody want to say? Anybody want to guess? Samson. Yes, very good. The famous story of Samson and Delilah. Shimshon. So Samson was a Nazir. Nazir, he was not allowed to, one of the stories that they say with him is that he wouldn't walk through a field that had grapes in it because he didn't even want to go near it, didn't want to be tempted to it. He would go around. His parents walked through the field, but he went around it. Here's the next thing. This is the very, very famous story from Samson. He was very powerful, and the secret was in his hair, right? Because when he told his wife then, who was kept on nagging him to tell him the secret, when they cut his hair, he lost all his strength. So anyway, this is the Torah telling us that another thing that's very unique to this Nazir is that the Torah says he wants to let his hair grow long. Let's see how the Torah says it inside. Kol Yemei Neder Nizri, all the days that he took in this commitment of abstinence, Tar Lo Yavra Aroishai, a razor, no metal, no razor, should not go over his head. Ad Maloi Sayamim, until he fills the time allotted that he's supposed to become a Nazirite. Asher Yazil Hashem, that he's going to commit himself and abstain for Hashem. Kodesh Yeh, Asher Yazil Hashem, Kodesh Yeh, he should be holy. Okay, his hair becomes holy. We're going to see his body becomes holy. This person is taking on abstinence of holiness, that literally his hair and his body is actually becoming holy. And he says here that he's sanctifying his hair on his head, that the hair is actually becoming holy. It should let grow long the hair that is on his head. Kol Yemei Hazirei, and this is the third and final thing that we're going to tell you today about this Nazirite. He's not allowed to become impure. He's holy. He's in a very strong state of holiness. Kol Yemei Hazirei, all the days that he took of the commitment Hashem to God. Al Nefesh Meis Layavi. He's not allowed to come in contact. Not allowed to come in contact. Not allowed to come near a dead body. He's not allowed to become impure. Even verse 7, Zayin La'avi V'Lima, even if it's father or mother. His brother or sister, even them, which a kohen is allowed to. Lo Yitama, this guy is not allowed to. He's kind of like the high priest. Lo Yitama lehem b'moisam, when they die, he's not allowed to defile himself and make himself pure to them. Why? Ki nezer elikav al roshif, because the crown of God is on his head. This man, in taking this, this unique high level of holiness. I looked in the Chinuch quickly, who explains the reason for mitzvahs, and the Chinuch says that part of this, what's the idea of this, is that a person gets caught up in life, in the indulgence. Sometimes they can get caught up in their looks. So at the end of his Nazarite period, he'll shave off his hair. It's a moment and it's a time which the person takes on a higher level, another level of holiness, in order to bring himself up from his regular day-to-day life. So he's on this he becomes holy. His hair becomes holy. He becomes holy. He's not allowed to go to a funeral. All the day of his Nazarite, this Nazarite, or man or woman, their body becomes holy to Hashem, and they're not allowed to therefore go, because they're holy, they're not allowed to go to a funeral. not let it go near a dead body. But then the Torah says, well, what happens if there's a mistake? So right, what's the interesting question going to be? If he's near a dead body by accident, what happens now? Does he, let's say he was a Nazirite for 10 days or 20 days. Does he have to start over from scratch? Because he made a commitment. He'll be a Nazirite for a month, let's say. Does he got to start over and recount those 20 days? Or he could just leave off from where he left off? And you're going to see the Torah is going to describe what he should do. The Torah is going to say he's got to start over from the beginning. Verse 9. Chiyamus meis olav. A dead body dies on him. Bepesa, by accident. Like total free case. Oipisoim. Or as Rashi says, it was like a mistake. He forgot. I don't know. People make mistakes in life. Or pesa pisoim is a kind of word for saying suddenly, out of the blue. B'timei roish nizrai, and the crown of his holiness became impure because now he was near a dead body. He was in the same room as a dead body, right? We know that the contamination of a dead body will transfer over the whole room when the body's in a room. So he was in the same room, and all of a sudden somebody died in that room. Begilach roisha, he has to then, what does he do? He's been growing his hair. He has to shave his head. B'yoyim ta'arasai, b'yoyim hashvi yigal chenu. He on the seventh day, so he waits 7 days until he leaves the impurity from going near a dead body. And on that seventh day, he gets sprinkled to remove, like a regular person sprinkled, on the seventh day. How do you allowed to go to the temple again? You get sprinkled from the red heifer. I believe that's what he's talking about here. On that day, he shaves off his head. On the eighth day, he's already going to be completely pure. But his process is that he waits the 7 days, just like anybody who's near a dead body wants to become pure, has to wait the completion of 7 days. Then they go to the process of the red heifer being sprinkled on the person, gets it sprinkled on him, and now he is pure from the dead body on the seventh day. On that same day, he goes to the barber, and the barber gives him a good shave and shaves off his hair. Uvayoim hashmini, and on the eighth day that he's already cleaned up, he already got the sprinkling of the blood, and he already shaved off his hair. On the eighth day, he brings a offering for having violated his Nazirite status, even though it was by mistake. But you want to ask forgiveness from Hashem for having violated his Nazirite status. So v'yoyim hashmini, on the eighth day, yavish te'tayrim, he should bring 2 birds, either two doves or 2 pigeons. I think they're younger birds and they're older birds. We learned this in Shnei Tayrim, those are 2 turtle doves, or Shnei B'nei Yaina, or he has an option to bring 2. So they're like different. We learned this in the past. Younger doves and older doves. Either no teenage doves, either younger or older. Al Kohen brings these 2 birds to the Kohen. Al Pesach El Moed, to the door of the sanctuary, brings them to the Kohen. And any time on, if he doesn't do it on the 8th day, that's fine. He can bring it on the 9th day and so on. So he's able to bring it at a later point in time if he wants to. What does the Kohen do with these birds? So Kohen takes the 2 birds, makes one of them into a sin offering, one of them into a burnt offering. As we learned in the past, there's different kinds of sacrifices we bring. One is a burnt offering, one is a sin offering. The Kohen forgives for him, from the sin he did, on being in the same, by coming in contact with a dead body, right? He sinned. So now he brings a burnt offering and a sin offering. That's why he brings 2 birds, 1 for each kind. And he sanctifies his head, meaning, what does it mean sanctifying his head? Let his head start growing long again, because remember, he shaved his hair on the 7th day. Now, I want to share with you very interesting Rashi here. There's a debate among the rabbis why he has to bring the sin offering. Now, the simple meaning I explained. I told you what it means. He did a sin because we bring sins even by mistake. So a guy died on him by mistake. Fine, but he violated his holiness, and now he's bringing a sin offering to be given forgiveness. There's another opinion here, and Rashi quotes this famous the Rabbi Lazar HaKapar. Rabbi Lazar HaKapar says there's a different reason why you have to bring the sin offering, and he actually says that everyone has to bring the sin offering, not just a guy whose Nazirite status was violated. Any person, even if he didn't violate his status, when he finished his Nazirite period, he has to bring a sin offering. And Rabbi Lazar HaKapar says, you want me to tell you why? Because he did something wrong. What did he do wrong? He abstained from drinking wine. But I thought this was something holy. And he tells you, anyone God gave us grapes and wine in this world in order for us to enjoy it. No person has a right, this is a very interesting idea, to say that they're not going to enjoy and partake in God's creations. In other words, God created the world for us to use. This business that someone is coming and saying, I'm abstaining, and I'm going to be, there's words for it, I forget what it's called, like holier, I'm going to abstain from any pleasures in life. This is actually not a Jewish idea. It's very fascinating. Rashi brings opinion here, famous opinion with the Nazarite, so much so that it has to bring a sin offering. Now, so how do you balance this? If I understand this correctly, on one hand, there are times in life which a person does need to remove himself, maybe like an alcoholic. He needs to remove himself from alcohol because it's dangerous. But does that mean it's a good thing? No. Hashem wants you to enjoy the things you created in this world with and have pleasure from them within moderation. If you're not healthy, you shouldn't, but that doesn't mean that that's a good thing, actually. That's not a good thing. So the Nazarite being holy, it's very interesting spin over here. With the Nazarite being holy, at the same time, it's actually, he's not doing a good thing. He is doing a good thing, but he's not doing a good thing. He's doing a good thing because he needs a little bit of time of becoming holy to Hashem. But the fact that you're saying no to what God created and made you and not using it in a permitted way, but totally prohibiting from yourself something God permitted for you is actually not a good thing. And therefore, at the end of this, you need to bring a sin offering for doing what you did. Very interesting opinion. Verse 12. And he will consecrate for Hashem. Again, he has to restart over again from the beginning for the days of his Nazarite vow, because he said, God, I'll be 100 days Nazarite for you. You can't, even though you were Nazarite for half of it, you must start from the beginning. The Hevi Keves ben Shnasai, and he will bring the sheep, which is a year old, La'asham, as a guilt offering. He'll bring then a sheep when he finishes, which a year old, Vayamim Harishonim Yiplu Kitame Nizrai, and his 4 days will be cancelled away and won't count, and he's got to start from the beginning. This is the Torah law of the Nazarite. What does he do when he's done? So we spoke about what he brings when he has to restart again. But what does he do when he's completely finished? He brings himself to the entrance to the tent of the meeting, to the Mishkan, to the Beis Hamikdash. He brings himself to the entrance. And he brings this V'ikriv Esa Karbani, and he brings the sacrifice that he's dedicating. Keves ben Shnasei Tamim, he brings a male sheep within 1 year old la'oila as a burnt offering. Okay, we're going to have 3 different sacrifices here, going through the main 3 categories. One male sheep to bring brought as a burnt offering, which is completely burnt on the altar. The kafsa achas bas shnasa, and a female a sheep, also a male sheep and a female sheep. The female sheep was brought as a sin offering. So the male sheep as a burnt offering, the female sheep as a sin offering, and we learned about that in the previous book of Vayikra, exactly what the process is for each one. And he brings a third one with the third category, that 1 ram, tamim l'shlamim, as a peace offering, which means that everyone will get a piece of the animal, a piece to Hashem, a piece to the Kohen, and a piece to the owner. Now, normally, I just have to give this heading up. Normally, the peace offering, the Kohen gets which part? He gets a back leg, and he gets the breast of the animal. Okay, those are the sections of meat that the Kohen normally gets: the breast of the animal and the back leg. Okay, that's normally what belongs to the Kohen. Here, the Kohen is going to get more. He's going to get a front leg and another piece, which I think we'll see in a minute. Let's see in a minute what else the Kohen gets. Anyway, now, another thing is, every other sacrifice, the shlamim and many other sacrifices, have gifts that come along with it. The gifts are always a wine libation and a meal offering. So whenever you bring an animal, depending on which animal it is, that's how much flour gift will come together with it in a package deal, and wine will come with it together. This has a whole nother thing. You bring matzahs with it, okay? You bring 2 kinds of matzahs together with it besides the meal and the wine offering. Let's see verse 15. Besal ha-matzahs, you bring a basket of matzahs, 10 matzahs, Rashi says actually. Soiles, chalois, blulis, b'shemen, these matzahs were made out of, why do you call them matzah? Because they're unleavened. They're made with fine flour mixed with oil, And also rikiki matzahs. There are wafer kind of things that didn't have so much oil in it. Meshuchim Hashem, only you put the oil on afterwards. It was baked, and it was baked like a wafer. And you would pour over on top of it oil. And so beside, you had 10 matzahs and 10 wafer matzah kind of things together in a basket, and you bring that as a gift. For some reason, that was required from the Nazarite. Meshuchim Hashem and Menuchasim and Eskeim, and together with them, the standard meal offering and the libations, the wine libations that go together with every standard burnt offering, a peace offering, were brought together with this one. The Kohen brings it to Hashem. And he brings the sin offering and the burnt offering, and he brings the ram that was brought as the peace offering, all three kinds of sacrifices. You should bring it as a peace offering sacrifice to Hashem. Al salam matzahs, with the basket of matzahs. Okay? And by, Rashi says, by him slaughtering the peace offering, the matzahs will become holy, automatically become holy. And the Kohen brings the meal offering and the libation, and that brings the whole sacrifice for the Nazarite. Then what does he do? He finished his period. I don't know, his hair might have grown, who knows long. Maybe it was a whole year. This guy never took a haircut. The Gilach HaNazir Pesach Oil Moed, and he will shave the head of the Nazarite at the door to the Mishkan, to the Oil Moed. Now, don't do it inside. It's not respectful to shave people, to go open a barbershop. Rashi says, within the tent of meeting. We even worry that the Kohen should not, this altar didn't have steps because the Kohen's feet, they wore robes in those days. We didn't want their privates showing on top of the altar. That's how careful we were in the temple. So you're for sure not opening a barbershop inside it's disrespectful. So Rashi tells us it's outside the door. We're not talking about inside the sanctuary. It's outside the door. Okay. And so you shave off his head. You take the hair off his head. You take all that hair. You have a nice long, as they say in Hebrew, kuku, a ponytail, or whatever else you have. And what do you do with that hair? You put it on the fire. Which fire? That's under the sacrifice. So again, let's go over the three sacrifices just so we know what we're talking about. There was the burnt offering and the sin offering. Those you didn't eat the meat. The owner didn't eat the meat from those. The third one, the peace offering, the owner and the Kohen both got pieces of meat. Now the Kohen actually would cook the meat right there in the Beis Hamikdash over there in the sanctuary. They had a place there where they had, some kind of a pot, and they would make a fire under the pot, and the Kohen would cook the piece of the animal, I think it was the front leg, in that pot. So they would make a fire under the pot. They would put the front leg that goes to the Kohen from the peace offering you brought, and they would make a fire under the pot. They would take the guy's hair that they shaved off his head and throw the hair into the fire. So the Kohen takes the foreleg, the cooked foreleg that he cooked in that pot where the hair was under on the fire. Mina'ayil, it was from the ram. It was a ram, foreleg of a ram. And he would take chala matzah achas. He would take one of the 10 matzah chalas. He would take one of the matzahs. Minasaf, take them out of the basket. Urukik matzah, take one of the 10 wafers. Echad, v'nasan al kapi anazir, and takes the leg, the front leg that he cooked, with one of each of the two, the one matzah and one wafer. V'nasan al kapi anazir, he puts it on the hand of the Nazarite. His galchayas nizroi, after he shaved off the Nazarite's head. And after it's cooked. I think a lot of times when they would wave it, it was raw meat. It wasn't cooked meat. Here, he's going to wave now in the different directions. We always learn about the waving. You're waving in the different directions where Hashem is around the world, up, front and back, up and down. And here he's taking the cooked leg that was cooked, boiled in a pot, it sounds like, and together with one matzah, one wafer from each of the 10. Verse 20, and the Kohen will wave in front of Hashem. It becomes holy to the Kohen. The challah and the wafer and the leg, they all become holy to the Kohen. So Yehuda, if he was doing the service, it would belong to him. And this is besides the normal portion you got to give the Kohen. You got to give him a chazayat nufa, the breast of the animal, vashoy katruma, and the back leg that he gets of every sacrifice that the Kohen gets. And then once you brought all the sacrifices you were supposed to bring, that you made a commitment to, all these things, then and only then is the Kohen allowed to go back to drinking wine. So he has to wait till he finishes all this thing and drink wine. This is the Torah of the Nazarite. They'll make a promise. Kabani Hashem, sacrifice to Hashem. Al Nizroi on his Nazarite, his abstinence that he took. Unless, listen, if the Kohen says, look, I want to splurge. He's a very wealthy guy. Every time I'm a Nazarite, I want to give 10 peace offerings together with it. And he's got to bring 10 peace offerings. He wants to show off how much he has, wants to be like that. And then he's stuck because he can't drink wine. He's not out of his Nazarite period till he brings all the sacrifices that he committed to together with his Nazarite period. That's what he should do. So he can't make up a different number. They're not. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, here's Hashem blessing Hashem telling them to bless the Kohanim, to bless the Jewish people. Daber al Aaron, speak to Aaron, Velbanav, and to his children. Lamar, and say to them, Koi sivaruchu as bnei Yisrael, so shall you bless the children of Israel. Emar lahem, and say to them, make sure the Kohanim are saying the blessing in a loud voice that everyone could hear it. And make sure that the Kohanim are concentrating. It shouldn't be a rushed situation where the Kohen gets up. He has to be very intentional about his Kohanic blessing. David Jarasha, you're listening, David? He has to be very intentional about his Kohanic responsibilities. He has to make sure he's doing it slow and he's making sure he's having good intention and everybody can hear him. And what does he say? We're going to explain the famous blessing that the Kohanim make. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. May Hashem bless you and watch over you and protect you. Rashi explains this to mean Yivarechecha. We're not just talking about spiritual blessings. Hashem should bless you with physical, financial possessions should be blessed. And not should your possessions be blessed, but they should be watched over. Hashem should watch over them. What does that mean? Nobody should steal them, which means a regular person gives a gift. You give the guy $1 million, but who's to say that the $1 million won't get stolen? Or the gift he gives him won't get stolen? Hashem gives the gift, and this is what the Kohen is saying, may Hashem give you the gift, bless your possessions, and yishmarecha, and watch over those possessions, that they shouldn't disappear. They should keep on staying by the owner who Hashem blessed them with. Then we go on to say, Yoer Hashem panav elecha, may Hashem shine his countenance upon you, which means Hashem should show you a smiling face, a radiant countenance, a good, positive face. Vichuneka, and Hashem should grant you favor. Chain is grace. Hashem should grant that you grace. You should have grace in your life. Yisa Hashem panav elecha, may Hashem raise his countenance to you, which means Hashem should lift away his anger. Hashem should not be angry at you. Yasim l'cha shalom, and Hashem should grant you peace. That's an obvious one. That's one we don't need to explain. The Samu Shmiya b'nei Yisrael, and Hashem tells the Kohanim that place my name on the Jewish people, which means you should bless them with the divine special name of God. Ani avarachem, and when you bless them, I will bless them. Meaning that I will bless them too. You will give them the blessing. The Kohanim will stand up in front of the shul and bless the congregation. And Hashem says, when you do that, I will agree to your blessing. Rashi gives another interpretation. When you bless my children, the Jewish people, I will bless you. So you in turn, the Kohanim, by blessing the Jewish people, who's going to bless the Kohanim? And guess who it is? Hashem says, when you bless them, I will bless you. And we're going to leave it over here. We'll continue. We'll have to continue the next Chumash with Hashem's help tomorrow. Any questions or comments before I wish you all a good Shabbos? Any questions or comments? No? Okay. Yeah.
Is there